Welcome to The Explainer. So, let's jump right in. Have you ever noticed how people in the business world throw around the words growing and scaling like they mean the exact same thing? They celebrate a bigger office, maybe hiring a bunch of new employees, or seeing a massive spike in revenue as the ultimate victory. But today, we're going to explore the critical difference between a business that's merely getting bigger and one that is getting significantly stronger.
Let me ask you a question. If your revenue magically doubled tomorrow morning, would your business become healthier or would it just be total chaos? Think about it. For a lot of founders out there, a sudden surge in business would absolutely break their current operations. They'd be drowning in emails, dealing with client complaints, and hitting bottleneck after bottleneck. And you know why? Because they've built a model for growth, not for scale.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the illusion of growth. Second, growth versus scaling. Third, the founder dependency trap. Fourth, the blueprint for scaling. And finally, number 5, scale with Aadesh Navade.
All right, Section 1, the illusion of growth. Get this, a staggering 70% of ventures cross the $1 million annual recurring revenue mark only to slam right into a brick wall, what experts actually call this scale-up stall. So, what's going on here? Well, basically, a company proves its market demand, right? They start bringing in cash, and then immediately, they just throw bodies at their problems. They expand headcount way too early, the complexity totally outpaces their capability, and suddenly, boom, they're facing major cash flow strangulation.
Let's look at a traditional linear growth model. Say your client volume goes up by a healthy 25%. Awesome, right? But to handle all that incoming work, you have to increase your payroll by 24%. The end result? A net margin improvement of less than 1%. Literally, less than 1%. It's the absolute tragedy of linear growth. You're working 25% harder, taking on way more risk, managing more people, all just to see a microscopic bump in your actual profit.
Which brings us to Section 2, growth versus scaling.
Now, a crucial takeaway from our sources is getting the strategic vocabulary right. Scaling is defined as decoupling the link between resource consumption and financial gain. Basically, you want your revenue to increase exponentially, while your costs, they only rise incrementally. It's all about building what we call anti-fragile infrastructure. You want a machine that doesn't just survive an increase in load, but actually thrives on it.
Let's compare the two side by side to really drive this home. Growth is linear. It simply adds resources, which increases pressure on your team. And fundamentally, it's just about doing more. Scaling, on the other hand, is exponential. It improves your leverage. It actually creates freedom for the leadership team. And at its core, it's about becoming better. Think of it this way. Growth adds heavy weight to your company, but scaling removes the friction from your business model.
And the math completely proves why scale-first organizations are dominating their markets. Going back to our earlier example, a traditional agency seeing 25% volume growth needs a 24% staff increase just to survive it. But get this, an AI-native SaaS model can handle a massive 300% volume growth with only a 12% staff increase. No way, right? But that is exactly what decoupling looks like in the real world. They use automated workflows and standardized processes so their profit margins expand aggressively while their costs stay pretty much flat.
Moving on to Section 3, the founder dependency trap.
5 to 10% monthly efficiency lost. Yep, you heard that right. This is the massive hidden financial leakage happening in growing firms. And why does this happen? Well, it's a mix of repeated rework, poor delegation, and totally unclear approvals. It's that classic trap where every single small decision has to flow upward and bottleneck at one person. Depending on your size, over a year, this can literally mean massive financial losses that are entirely hidden behind delays, frustration, and blocked employees.
This leads directly to what economists actually call diseconomies of scale. This happens when, say, a 50% jump in revenue causes a massive 70% spike in administrative overhead. If you're just adding bodies or buying some super expensive software without fixing your underlying processes, you don't get efficiency. Actually, you just multiply the confusion and create massive bureaucracy. A bigger business under these conditions is, well, it's actually a much weaker business.
There's a really powerful insight from our source material here, and it's this. In a scaling environment, the leadership's primary responsibility is to be architects, not doers. You literally have to fire yourself from the small things. If you're an operator trapped in daily survival mode, approving minor purchases or manually fixing client complaints, you are definitely not scaling. You've got to shift your mindset to become a builder who's creating long-term resilience.
All right, Section 4, the blueprint for scaling.
So how do we fix this?
The core concept we need to focus on is operational leverage. This means investing heavily upfront in fixed costs. We're talking mapped workflows, standard operating procedures, and automation, so that the variable costs of adding your next new customer remain as close to zero as humanly possible. And honestly, this is exactly how smart executives generate a massively higher return on every single incremental dollar they invest.
Now, the sequence of scaling is absolutely crucial here. First, validate growth. You need to prove your product-market fit with real customers. Second, map workflows. Get absolute total operational clarity on your processes. Then, and only then, step 3, automate and adopt tech. You wouldn't believe how many growing businesses make the fatal mistake of buying fancy CRM software before they've even defined their actual processes. Technology without process clarity just creates digital confusion. Remember, the tools always come second.
And finally, Section 5, Scale with Aadesh Navade.
This quote from our sources really hits the nail on the head. Many leaders know they are growing, but they are unsure whether they are truly scaling. Man, does that sound familiar to anyone? You feel the operational pressure increasing way faster than the profits. You're hiring more people, but somehow you're feeling more overwhelmed than ever. This is exactly the moment where an external strategic architect becomes absolutely vital to bridge that gap and completely re-engineer your reality. The sources actually highlight Aadesh Navade as this exact type of architect. His cross-disciplinary expertise is pretty wild. He's a PNP-certified consultant, an MBA, and a civil engineer. So he brings pure engineering logic to re-engineer your workflows. Instead of just giving you high-level advice and walking away, this approach provides hands-on manpower, actual team coordination, and strategic funding solutions. He optimizes your KPIs to prevent those growth bottlenecks before they even happen, bringing the knowledge, the manpower, and the money to drive highly profitable scaling.
Look, growth without scale is just a larger version of the exact same problems. To transform your linear hustle into a true exponential machine, the material points to architecting a future without chaos alongside Aadesh Navade. You can reach out to Aadesh for scaling your business without chaos at +91 934 2949 or just shoot him an email at aadeshnavade7@gmail.com. So, taking a hard look at your own business today, are you merely growing a heavier machine, or are you finally ready to scale? Thanks for tuning into this explainer.